This is why you feel so scared to start an English conversation with a stranger. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our English learning podcast. I'm Daniel, and today we are going to talk about something that almost every English learner experiences at some point. It is that strange moment when you want to speak English with someone new, maybe a stranger, maybe a colleague, maybe someone you meet while traveling. But instead of feeling excited, you suddenly feel nervous. Your heart starts beating faster, your mind starts racing, and the words you practiced in your head seem to disappear. If you have ever felt this way, then today's episode is especially for you.
Hello everyone, I'm Maya, and I'm really happy to be part of today's conversation because this topic is incredibly important. Many English learners believe they are the only ones who feel afraid to start conversations with strangers. They sometimes think that their fear means they are not good at English, or that they lack confidence. But the truth is very different. This fear is extremely common, and it happens to learners all around the world. Today we want to explain why this fear happens and how you can slowly overcome it.
Let's start by describing a situation that many people listening to this podcast may recognize. Imagine you are in a place where English speakers are around you. Maybe you are at work, maybe you are studying, maybe you are traveling, or maybe you simply see someone who looks friendly and approachable. You think to yourself, this could be a good opportunity to practice my English. At first the idea feels exciting, and you even imagine the conversation in your mind. But the moment you consider actually speaking, something inside you suddenly stops you.
Yes, and that moment is very interesting psychologically. Your brain begins creating small worries very quickly. You might start thinking, what if I say something wrong? Or what if my pronunciation sounds strange? Or even what if the person doesn't understand me and the conversation becomes awkward? These thoughts can appear in just a few seconds. And suddenly, what seemed like a simple conversation now feels like a stressful situation.
One of the biggest reasons for this fear is something psychologists call the fear of judgment. Human beings naturally care about how others see them. We want to appear intelligent, capable, and confident. When we speak our native language, this is easy because we can express our thoughts clearly and quickly. But when speaking English as a second language, we may feel slower and less confident, and that difference can make us feel exposed.
Exactly. When learners speak English, they often feel like they are showing their weaknesses in public. They worry that their mistakes might make them look less intelligent or less capable. But the reality is that language learning always includes mistakes. In fact, mistakes are not signs of failure. They are signs that you are actively learning and trying to communicate. Without mistakes, progress is almost impossible.
Another interesting reason people feel afraid is perfectionism. Many learners believe they must speak perfect English before they start conversations. They think every sentence must be grammatically correct, every word must be pronounced clearly, and every idea must be expressed perfectly. Because of this belief, they delay speaking until they feel ready. Unfortunately, that moment of perfect readiness rarely comes.
That's true, and it's important to understand something about real conversations. Even native speakers do not speak perfectly all the time. They pause, they repeat themselves, they change sentences in the middle, and sometimes they even use incorrect grammar. Conversation is naturally messy and flexible. The goal of communication is not perfection. It is understanding each other.
There is also another factor that many learners forget about. Starting a conversation with a stranger is already slightly uncomfortable, even in your native language. Think about it. Walking up to someone you don't know and beginning a conversation requires a little courage. Now imagine doing that in a language you are still learning. The challenge becomes much bigger.
Yes, and that is why learners should be kind to themselves. If you feel nervous in these situations, it doesn't mean you are weak or incapable. It simply means you are stepping outside your comfort zone. Growth almost always happens outside that comfortable space. Every conversation you attempt is a small act of courage.
Let me share something encouraging. Most strangers you speak to are not focusing on your mistakes. They are usually focused on understanding your message. If your words communicate your idea, the conversation is already successful. Many people even admire those who try to speak a second language because they understand how difficult it can be.
I've had that experience many times. When I was learning English, I often worried about my accent. But when I finally started speaking with people, I realized that many listeners were patient and supportive. Some even told me they respected the effort it takes to learn another language. That encouragement helped me relax and speak more freely.
Another helpful thing to remember is that conversations do not need to be long or complicated. Many learners imagine they must start deep discussions immediately. But that is not necessary at all. Simple conversations are powerful practice.
Yes. Something as simple as saying, "Hello, how are you today?" can be the beginning of a conversation. From there, you might ask where the person is from, what they do for work, or how their day is going. These small questions can naturally grow into longer discussions.
Confidence in speaking English develops in the same way muscles develop when you exercise. The first time you go to a gym, lifting weights might feel difficult and uncomfortable. But if you continue practicing regularly, your strength slowly increases.
Language works in a similar way. The more conversations you have, the easier speaking becomes. Your brain becomes faster at finding words, your pronunciation becomes clearer, and your confidence grows naturally through experience.
It is also helpful to change the way you think about mistakes. Instead of seeing mistakes as embarrassing failures, try to see them as useful teachers. Every mistake shows you something new about the language.
Exactly. Maybe a mistake teaches you a new word or helps you remember a grammar rule more clearly. Over time, these small lessons accumulate and improve your fluency.
So if you are listening to this podcast and you feel afraid to start conversations in English, remember that your fear is not unusual.
It is simply part of the journey of learning a new language.
And the only real way to reduce this fear is through gentle, consistent practice.
Every small conversation helps build your confidence step by step.
One day you will notice something surprising.
You will start a conversation in English without feeling afraid.
And when that moment comes, you will realize how far you have progressed.
Because confidence grows quietly through practice.
So don't wait for perfect English.
Start speaking with the English you already know.
Your first conversation may feel awkward.
But your 10th conversation will feel easier.
And your 100th conversation may feel completely natural.
That is the power of practice and persistence.
One thing I want listeners to remember is that fear often comes from imagining the worst possible outcome. Before you even start speaking, your mind creates a story about what might go wrong. You imagine the other person not understanding you, or maybe responding quickly with difficult words. Sometimes you even imagine an awkward silence after your first sentence. These imagined situations can feel very real in your mind, even though they rarely happen in real life. Because of this, your brain decides that staying silent feels safer than taking the risk of speaking.
That is a very good point, Daniel. Our minds are incredibly powerful, and sometimes they protect us too much. When learning a language, the brain tries to avoid embarrassment or discomfort. But the strange thing is that the more we avoid speaking, the bigger the fear becomes. Avoidance makes the situation feel more difficult than it actually is. When learners finally speak, they often realize the conversation was much easier than they expected.
Another reason conversations feel difficult is that listening and speaking happen at the same time. When you speak English alone, you can take your time to think. But in a real conversation, things move quickly. The other person talks, you listen, and then you must respond. This fast rhythm can feel stressful for learners because they are translating thoughts in their minds while trying to understand the other person.
Yes, and that pressure can make learners feel overwhelmed. Sometimes they understand most of what the other person says, but they cannot immediately find the right words to answer. This is completely normal. Even advanced learners sometimes pause while thinking about how to respond. Taking a moment to think is not a problem at all. In fact, many native speakers also pause during conversations.
Something else that can create fear is comparing yourself to others. Maybe you know someone who speaks English very fluently, and when you hear them speaking confidently, you feel discouraged. You might think, why can't I speak like that? But this comparison is not fair to yourself. Every person learns at a different pace and has a different language journey.
Exactly. Some people have more opportunities to practice, while others may not have many chances to speak English in daily life. Some learners have studied English for many years, while others are just beginning. What matters most is not how someone else speaks, but how much progress you are making compared to your past self.
Let's also talk about accents, because this is another common source of fear. Many learners worry that their accent will sound strange or incorrect. They may believe that unless they sound like a native speaker, people will not understand them.
But the truth is that English is spoken all around the world, and there are many different accents. People from different countries speak English in their own unique way. Having an accent is completely natural. What really matters is clarity. If people can understand your words, then communication is successful.
In fact, accents often make conversations more interesting. They reflect where a person comes from and the languages they have learned in their life. Instead of seeing your accent as a weakness, try to see it as part of your identity.
Yes, and many listeners will be surprised to learn that even native English speakers have very different accents depending on where they live. Someone from one region may sound completely different from someone in another region, yet they still communicate easily.
Another helpful strategy for reducing fear is preparing a few simple conversation starters. When you already know the first sentence you want to say, it becomes easier to begin the interaction.
For example, you could start with something simple like, "Hi, how is your day going?" Or, "Hello, where are you from?" These simple questions are friendly and natural. They open the door for a conversation without putting too much pressure on you.
You can also prepare answers to common questions people might ask you. Many conversations start with similar topics, such as where you are from, what you do for work, or what you enjoy doing in your free time.
When you practice talking about these topics, you will feel more confident because you already know how to express your ideas. Preparation does not mean memorizing long speeches. It simply means becoming comfortable with a few common sentences.
Another interesting idea is to think of conversations as friendly experiments rather than serious performances. When scientists perform experiments, they expect things to be imperfect and sometimes unexpected.
That is a great way to look at it. If you treat each conversation as a learning experiment, mistakes become part of the process rather than something to fear. Every conversation gives you new information about how people communicate.
Let's also talk about patience. Language learning takes time, and confidence grows gradually. Sometimes learners expect themselves to improve very quickly, and when progress feels slow, they become frustrated.
Patience is extremely important. Learning a language is not like flipping a switch. It is more like growing a plant. With regular practice and care, the plant slowly becomes stronger and taller over time.
Another powerful tool is listening to many different English voices. Podcasts, interviews, and conversations can help your brain become familiar with different speaking styles.
Yes. And when you hear many conversations, you start noticing patterns. You hear how people greet each other, how they ask questions, and how they respond naturally.
When those patterns become familiar, starting a conversation feels less intimidating.
Because your brain already recognizes the rhythm of real communication.
I also want to remind listeners that courage does not mean feeling no fear.
Courage simply means acting even when you feel nervous.
Every time you start a conversation despite feeling afraid, you are building courage.
And courage slowly turns into confidence.
One day you may find yourself speaking English naturally with someone you just met.
And you might suddenly remember the days when starting a conversation felt impossible.
That moment will show you how much you have grown.
Because progress often happens quietly and gradually.
So the next time you meet someone and feel the urge to speak English, try to take a small step forward.
Even a simple greeting can be the beginning of a meaningful conversation.
Remember that every fluent speaker once had their first awkward conversation.
And that conversation was the beginning of their confidence.
The path to fluency is not made of perfect sentences.
It is made of many small conversations.
Some of those conversations will feel easy.
Some may feel uncomfortable.
But every single one helps you grow.
And every conversation brings you one step closer to confidence.
Sometimes the fear of speaking English with strangers is connected to past experiences. Maybe there was a time when you tried to speak and someone corrected you in a way that felt embarrassing. Or maybe someone laughed, even if they did not mean to hurt you. Experiences like that can stay in our memory and make us more cautious the next time we want to speak. Our brain tries to protect us from repeating that uncomfortable moment, so it tells us to stay quiet.
That is very true. But it is also important to remember that one negative experience does not represent every conversation you will have in the future. Many people are kind and patient when they speak with someone learning their language. In fact, many English speakers enjoy helping others practice. When you focus only on one bad experience, it can hide the many positive experiences waiting for you.
Another challenge learners face is the fear of not understanding the other person. Sometimes the worry is not only about speaking but also about listening. You might think, what if they speak too fast? Or what if they use words I have never heard before? These thoughts can create hesitation before the conversation even begins.
Yes, and that fear is understandable. Native speakers often talk quickly in everyday conversation, but there is something encouraging about this situation. When people realize that you are learning English, many naturally slow down their speech and use simpler words. Communication is a shared effort, and most people will adjust their language to help the conversation continue.
Another helpful strategy is learning to ask for clarification. If you don't understand something, it is perfectly acceptable to say, "Sorry, could you repeat that?" or "Could you speak a little more slowly?" These simple requests show that you are engaged in the conversation and trying to understand.
Exactly. Asking someone to repeat themselves is not embarrassing. It is actually a normal part of communication. Even native speakers sometimes ask each other to repeat something if they did not hear it clearly. Communication is not about understanding every single word perfectly. It is about understanding the general meaning of what someone is saying.
Let's also talk about the importance of curiosity. When you are curious about other people, conversations become easier because your focus shifts away from your own fear. Instead of worrying about your English, you become interested in learning about the other person.
That's a wonderful perspective. When you ask someone about their life, their hobbies, or their experiences, the conversation naturally flows. Curiosity creates genuine interest, and genuine interest often leads to meaningful conversations.
Another idea that can help learners is practicing small talk. Small talk is the kind of light, friendly conversation people have in everyday situations. Topics might include the weather, work, travel, or weekend plans.
Small talk may seem simple, but it is actually a powerful skill. These short conversations help people connect with each other and build comfort before discussing deeper topics. For English learners, small talk is a great way to practice speaking without feeling too much pressure.
For example, you might say something like, "It's a beautiful day today," or "Have you been busy this week?" These questions are simple but effective in starting a conversation.
And once the conversation begins, the other person might share something interesting about their day or their work. From there, the discussion can naturally grow into a longer interaction.
Another useful habit is smiling when you start a conversation. A friendly smile can make both people feel more comfortable.
Yes, body language plays a big role in communication. A warm smile and relaxed posture can make a conversation feel welcoming and natural.
It's also helpful to remember that silence in a conversation is not always a problem. Sometimes there may be a short pause while someone thinks about what to say next.
Those pauses are completely normal. In fact, short pauses often happen in conversations between native speakers too. Silence does not mean the conversation has failed. It simply means people are thinking.
One of the most powerful ways to improve confidence is repetition. The more often you start conversations, the more familiar the experience becomes.
Yes. And with each conversation, your brain becomes more comfortable with the process of speaking and listening at the same time.
Think of it like learning to ride a bicycle. At first it feels difficult and unbalanced.
But after practicing many times, riding becomes automatic and natural.
Language works in a similar way. Your brain slowly adapts through repeated practice.
Maya, and eventually speaking English begins to feel normal rather than stressful.
It's also important to celebrate small successes. Maybe today you greeted someone in English.
Or maybe you had a short conversation that lasted only a few minutes.
These small moments may seem simple, but they represent real progress.
Each small success builds the confidence needed for bigger conversations.
Over time, these small steps create a strong foundation for fluency.
And one day you may realize that starting conversations no longer feels frightening.
Instead, you may start to feel excited about meeting new people.
Because every conversation becomes an opportunity to learn something new.
You might hear a new expression.
Or learn about someone's culture or life story.
That is one of the most beautiful parts of learning a language.
Language allows us to connect with people from many different places.
Those connections often begin with a simple greeting.
Just a few words can open the door to a meaningful exchange.
So if you feel nervous about speaking English with strangers, remember that every fluent speaker once stood exactly where you are now.
They also felt uncertain and hesitant in the beginning.
But they continued practicing despite the fear.
And that persistence eventually transformed their confidence.
The same transformation is possible for you.
All it takes is patience, practice, and courage.
Your English does not need to be perfect to begin a conversation.
It only needs to be sincere and understandable.
People remember genuine conversations more than perfect grammar.
Because communication is about connection, not perfection.
So the next time you see an opportunity to speak English with someone new, try taking that small step.
That single step might lead to a conversation you will always remember.
At this point in our conversation, I think it is important to remind listeners that learning a language is not only about vocabulary and grammar. It is also about emotional courage. Many people spend years studying English through books, videos, and courses, but they still hesitate when the moment comes to speak with a real person. This hesitation often comes from emotional barriers rather than language ability. When you recognize that fear is emotional, not intellectual, it becomes easier to work through it step by step.
That is such an important idea, Daniel. Sometimes learners underestimate how much emotion is involved in communication. Speaking another language is not just a technical skill, it is also a social experience. When you talk to someone, you are sharing a small part of yourself. That vulnerability can feel uncomfortable at first, but it is also what makes conversations meaningful and human.
Another helpful mindset is remembering that conversations do not need to be perfect to be valuable. Even if you forget a word or say something in a slightly unusual way, the conversation can still be successful. Communication is about exchanging ideas, feelings, and experiences, not about delivering flawless sentences.
Yes. And often the other person in the conversation is much more interested in what you are saying than how perfectly you say it. People enjoy hearing different perspectives and stories from others. When you share something about your life, your culture, or your interests, you're giving the conversation depth and personality.
Let's also talk about confidence for a moment. Confidence does not appear suddenly one day. It grows slowly through repeated experiences. Every time you speak English, even in a short conversation, you add another layer of confidence to your mind.
Exactly. Think of confidence like building a bridge. Each conversation is like placing one small piece of that bridge. At first, the bridge is incomplete and fragile, but as you add more pieces over time, it becomes stronger and easier to cross.
One practical way to build that bridge is by practicing with friendly environments first. You might start conversations with classmates, co-workers, or people who are also learning English.
Yes, and these supportive environments can help you feel more comfortable before speaking with complete strangers. The goal is not to avoid challenges forever, but to gradually build your confidence step by step.
Another helpful idea is to remember that conversations are shared experiences. You are not the only one responsible for keeping the conversation alive.
That's right. The other person also plays a role in the interaction. They ask questions, respond to your ideas, and help move the conversation forward.
This means the pressure is not entirely on you. Conversations are teamwork.
And teamwork often feels much less intimidating than facing something alone.
Sometimes learners also worry about long pauses in conversation.
But pauses are completely natural.
Even experienced speakers pause when they are thinking.
Those pauses simply give your mind time to organize your thoughts.
Another useful trick is learning a few phrases that help you continue a conversation.
For example, you might say, "That's interesting. Tell me more about that."
Or you could say, "I've never heard that before."
These phrases keep the conversation flowing naturally.
Let's also talk about listening skills.
Listening carefully can reduce your fear.
When you focus on understanding the other person, you stop worrying so much about your own mistakes.
And the conversation becomes more relaxed and enjoyable.
Many people discover that once the conversation begins, the fear slowly disappears.
Yes. The hardest moment is often the very first sentence.
After that first sentence, everything becomes easier.
Because the conversation has already started.
That first step is often the most powerful one.
It transforms hesitation into action.
Over time, those small actions build confidence.
And confidence makes future conversations easier.
Eventually, you may find yourself starting conversations without even thinking about it.
It becomes a natural habit.
At that point, you will realize something amazing.
Your fear has slowly disappeared.
Not because you suddenly became perfect.
But because you became comfortable with imperfection.
And that comfort allows real communication to happen.
It allows you to focus on connection rather than correctness.
When learners reach this stage, speaking English begins to feel enjoyable.
Instead of stressful.
You start looking forward to conversations.
Because each one brings new experiences.
You might learn about another person's culture.
Or discover new ideas and perspectives.
Language becomes a bridge between people.
And conversations become opportunities for friendship.
All of this begins with a simple greeting.
Just a few words can open a new connection.
So if you are listening today and feeling afraid to speak English with strangers,
please remember that fear is a normal part of the learning journey.
every confident English speaker once felt the same hesitation.
But they continued practicing.
And with time, their courage grew stronger.
Just like yours will.
So take small steps.
Be patient with yourself.
And keep speaking whenever you have the opportunity.
Because every conversation is progress.
Soon you will notice something changing inside you.
Your confidence will begin to grow quietly.
The fear that once stopped you will feel smaller.
And your curiosity about people will feel bigger.
That curiosity will lead you to more conversations.
And more conversations will strengthen your fluency.
Eventually you will speak English without overthinking every word.
And communication will feel natural.
When that day comes, remember how far you have traveled.
Because every small step led you there.
Your courage made the difference.
Your persistence made the progress possible.
And your willingness to try again kept you moving forward.
Even when things felt difficult.
That is the true path to language confidence.
Not perfection, but persistence.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode.
We hope this conversation helped you understand your fear a little better.
And remember, the next English conversation you start might be the moment your confidence begins to grow.
Until next time, keep practicing, keep speaking, and believe in your progress.